In 1900, the entire country of France had exactly 3,000 cars. The roads were unpaved dirt tracks. Gasoline wasn't sold at stations. You bought it in small glass bottles from the local pharmacy. The national speed limit was 12 miles per hour. Driving wasn't a utility. It was a dangerous, dirty weekend hobby for eccentric aristocrats. And in the middle of this environment, two brothers running a struggling rubber factory in the rural town of Clermont-Ferrand looked at those 3,000 cars and decided to bet their entire livelihood on them. Their names were Edouard and André Michelin. Today, the company they founded controls a multi-billion-dollar global tire empire. But they are equally famous for dictating the global standard of high-end gastronomy. The Michelin Star. A chef in Tokyo will weep on national television for receiving one. A restaurant in New York will face bankruptcy for losing one. A rubber manufacturer based in central France convinced the entire world to pay $300 for a plate of butter-drenched snails. And they did it using a textbook application of induced demand. The problem with rubber. To understand the Michelin Guide, you have to look at the mechanics of the early pneumatic tire. Before the 1890s, tires were solid rings of rubber glued directly to a wooden or metal wheel. They were durable, but the ride was brutal. John Boyd Dunlop invented the air-filled pneumatic tire in 1888, which absorbed shock, but it was glued to the rim. If you punctured a tire on a sharp rock, the wheel was ruined. You needed a specialized mechanic to cut the rubber off and glue a new one on. It took hours. In 1891, the Michelin brothers patented the first detachable pneumatic tire. You could pry it off the rim, patch the inner tube, and put it back on in 15 minutes. They proved it worked by winning the Paris-Brest-Paris bicycle race. By 1895, they built a custom car, fitted it with their pneumatic tires, and entered it in the Paris-Bordeaux-Paris auto race. They finished last, but the tires held. They had the superior product. Now they faced a pure volume problem. Tires only wear out through friction. Friction only happens when cars move. If the 3,000 car owners in France only drove their vehicles in circles around their country estates on Sunday afternoons, they would buy one set of tires every 5 years. The Michelin brothers needed these aristocrats to drive. Fast, far, and frequently. They needed to manufacture a reason for people to leave their homes. The Trojan horse in a red cover. In August 1900, André Michelin published the first edition of the Michelin Guide. They printed 35,000 copies and gave them away for free. The cover was the same bright, utilitarian red that it is today. But if you opened that first edition, you wouldn't find a single review of a tasting menu or a wine pairing. The 1,900 Michelin Guide was an industrial survival manual. It contained detailed maps of French roads. It listed every pharmacy that sold gasoline. It provided instructions on how to change a tire, how to fix a flooded carburetor, and where to find a mechanic who wouldn't overcharge you. But crucially, it listed hotels and restaurants in towns far outside of Paris. The psychology was precise. André Michelin wanted to turn a short Sunday drive into a weekend cross-country adventure. If a wealthy Parisian read the guide and saw there was a charming inn serving excellent roasted duck 150 miles south in Burgundy, they might attempt the drive. A 300-mile round trip on unpaved, gravel-filled 19th-century roads practically guaranteed a blown tire. Tread would erode. Rubber would burn. The driver would have to buy a new set of Michelin tires. The guide wasn't a charity project. It was a marketing engine designed to accelerate the physical degradation of their own product. For 2 decades, the strategy worked quietly. The guide grew in circulation. France paved its roads. The number of cars on the road jumped from 3,000 to over 100,000. But the Michelin brothers noticed a shift in user behavior. Drivers weren't just using the guide for spark plug repairs anymore. They were actively arguing over the restaurant listings, monetizing the detour. The shift from a free utility to a premium authority happened by accident. In 1920, André Michelin visited a tire distributor. He walked into the garage and saw a stack of his beloved red guides. They were being used to prop up a wobbly workbench. He realized a fundamental rule of consumer psychology. People only respect what they pay for. That year, Michelin stopped giving the guide away. They put a price tag on it, about 750 francs, roughly $2 at the time. By charging money, Michelin now had a fiduciary duty to its readers to provide accurate, unbiased information. They stripped all paid advertisements out of the book. To review the restaurants, they hired a team of anonymous inspectors. These men would travel the country, pay for their own meals, and report back to the home office. By 1926, the restaurant section had become so popular that Michelin introduced a single star to denote a good restaurant. In 1931, they rolled out the three-star hierarchy. It is still used today. If you strip away the prestige and look at the exact wording of the star system, the tire company's underlying motive is hiding in plain sight. 1 star, a very good restaurant in its category, a place to stop if it's on your route. 2 stars, excellent cooking, worth a detour. Turn off the main highway, drive an extra 20 miles, wear out your tread. 3 stars, exceptional cuisine, worth a special journey. Leave your house specifically to drive 400 miles to eat here. Burn a full tank of gas. Buy new tires. The entire metric of global fine dining was built on measuring the acceptable distance a driver should travel to consume a meal. The inspector cartel. To maintain the illusion of an incorruptible standard, Michelin had to militarize its review process. Today, Michelin inspectors operate with the operational security of intelligence agents. They are full-time employees of the Michelin Group. They are not allowed to speak to the press. They are barred from telling their own parents or spouses the exact nature of their job. When an inspector books a table, they use a fake name. They pay the bill in full. They drop their napkin on the floor to test the staff's observation skills. They eat alone, quietly observing the temperature of the plates, the spacing of the tables, and the acidity of the sauce. The typical inspector travels 3 weeks out of the month. They eat 250 restaurant meals a year. They sleep in 160 different hotels. They do not judge the interior design. They do not care if the waiter smiles at them. Michelin states explicitly that the stars are awarded based on 5 criteria alone: quality of the ingredients, mastery of flavor and cooking techniques, the personality of the chef as revealed through the cuisine, value for money, consistency between visits. If a restaurant is being considered for 3 stars, it is visited multiple times by multiple different inspectors across different seasons to ensure the scallop dish served in October is as flawless as the scallop dish served in April. The final stars are awarded at a star session where the inspectors debate, often for hours, until a unanimous decision is reached. This mechanical, industrialized approach to reviewing art is exactly why the system works. Food is subjective. Tire manufacturing is not. Michelin applied the strict quality control tolerances of a rubber factory to the fluid, chaotic world of a commercial kitchen. The economics of a star. The financial impact of this red book is difficult to overstate. A Michelin star is not just a plaque on the wall. It is a massive, immediate injection of capital. The late chef Joël Robuchon, who held 32 Michelin stars across his empire, provided the most accurate breakdown of the math. According to his operational data, winning 1 star boosts a restaurant's revenue by 20%. Winning 2 stars boosts revenue by 40%. Winning 3 stars boosts revenue by 100%. A 3-star rating transforms a local dining room into a global destination. The restaurant can immediately double its tasting menu price. Wait lists stretch from days to months. High net worth travelers route their private jets based on the release of the new guide. But the blade swings both ways. The system requires constant upkeep. A star is only leased for 1 year. You must earn it back every single time an inspector walks through the door. If a restaurant drops from 3 stars to 2, the economic shock is violent. Investors pull out. Banks refuse loans. Customers cancel reservations because the restaurant is no longer the best. In 2003, renowned French chef Bernard Loiseau committed suicide amid rumors later proven partially true that the Michelin Guide was planning to strip his restaurant of its 3rd star. The pressure to maintain the standard set by a tire company is a literal matter of life and death in the hospitality industry. The global expansion. For a century, Michelin kept its focus predominantly on Europe. But tires are a global commodity, and the guide needed to follow the rubber. In 2005, Michelin crossed the Atlantic and published its first guide for New York City. The reception was hostile. New York food critics accused the French inspectors of severe bias, claiming they only favored stuffy white tablecloth restaurants with heavy sauces, and ignored the chaotic, diverse reality of American dining. Michelin absorbed the criticism and pivoted. 2 years later, in 2007, they dropped a nuclear bomb on the culinary world. They launched the Tokyo Guide. Before 2007, Paris held the title for the most Michelin stars of any city on Earth. In its very first edition, the Tokyo Guide awarded a staggering 191 stars. Tokyo instantly dethroned Paris as the culinary capital of the world, according to Michelin's own metrics. It was a masterstroke of geopolitical marketing. Japan has a massive domestic auto industry. By validating Japanese cuisine, awarding stars to tiny 8-seat sushi counters and ramen shops located in subway stations, Michelin established absolute credibility in the Asian market. They proved the Guide was not just a French protectionist racket. They were willing to admit that a chef slicing raw fish in a basement in Ginza possessed the same mastery of technique as a chef roasting a pigeon in a chateau in Lyon. Today, the Guide operates in over 40 destinations worldwide, from Seoul to Sao Paulo to Istanbul. They award stars to street food vendors in Singapore where a meal costs $3. The definition of a detour has scaled. You no longer drive a Peugeot out to the French countryside. You book a 14-hour flight on a Boeing 777 to eat chili crab in a hawker center. The modern paradox. We are left with an objectively absurd reality. If a tech company released an app today that told you where to eat, and you found out the app was funded by ExxonMobil to get you to burn more gasoline, it would be heavily criticized. But because the Michelin brothers wrapped their marketing scheme in a red cover, hired anonymous agents, and maintained strict editorial independence for a century, we accept it as the absolute pinnacle of culinary achievement. They successfully separated the brand of the tire from the brand of the Guide, while letting both feed the same corporate entity. You trust the tires because they keep you safe at 80 miles an hour. You trust the Guide because it tells you exactly what to eat when you arrive. The Michelin Guide is not a story about food. It is a story about the creation of movement. It is the most successful, longest-running content marketing campaign in the history of modern capitalism. So, next time you are trying to book a table 3 months in advance, or staring down a tasting menu that costs more than a car payment, ask yourself, are you appreciating the peak of human culinary artistry? Or are you just following the directions of a 130-year-old rubber factory telling you to wear down your tread?